and welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, hey, welcome. My name is Amy Rebecca and this is a place where we get together to discuss all things personal development, intentional living and dream chasing. Today I've got one heck of a video for you guys because I'm going to be spilling all the tea, getting into all of the ins and outs of my This Time Next Year challenge, aka how I changed my life and completely leveled up in 365 days. Please excuse the sounds of construction, screaming children, and my neighbor's rooster. It is what it is. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, back in 2021, I completely transformed the way that I looked at my personal growth, personal development, and what the heck I was doing with my life. I started this thing called the This Time Next Year challenge, and I documented the whole thing over on TikTok, so I'll link that down below in case you want to go and check that out later. But in today's video, I'm going to be explaining exactly how this challenge came about and the impact that it had on me. I'm going to share with you how you can start your own This Time Next Year challenge, and then I'm going to share my top tips for actually changing your life. Also, if you'd like to subscribe, now would be a good time. Just saying. Okay, so to give you a little bit of context of how this whole thing came about, back in 2021, I had hit absolute rock bottom. I felt completely adrift in my life. I mean, I was heartbroken, yes. I was depressed, yes. I was anxious, yes. In fact, my panic attacks were so bad and so frequent that I was afraid to leave the house most days. I was in a really bad space mentally, and I just felt like my whole life was outside of my control. Like it was a disaster that I was watching from a distance, like a car crash that I was observing, but it was my life, you know? And so I had tried all of these kind of like 30-day life resets, meditation challenge, yoga challenge. I had read tons of personal development books and I was listening to all of the self-help podcasts, but nothing I did seemed to make any kind of difference. There wasn't a single shred of joy in my life. I would wake up every day and just go through the motions. I was just existing, and I couldn't keep doing that. Then one day I had a tarot reading and suddenly I had this revelation that instead of focusing on how I was floundering around in the present and wishing that things were different then in that moment, that I needed to look forward to the future and start working towards that, because I couldn't change my present circumstances immediately, right? That's not possible. Couldn't suddenly wake up the next day and everything would be different. And so focusing on the present and how much I wanted to change it and wrangle it into something new, it wasn't productive. I needed to stop focusing on that and start focusing on the future instead, because the future is malleable. The present just is what it is. And that is how the This Time Next Year challenge came about. The idea, in its most basic, stripped back sense, was for me to decide what I wanted my life to look like by this time next year, and then do one thing every day that would bring me closer to that life. And it worked! By the end of that challenge, and even really kind of before the end of the challenge, I was a completely different version of myself. I was more confident, more fulfilled, more self-aware, more intentional than I had ever been before, and happier than I had ever been before. And look, this change didn't happen overnight, okay? That's kind of the whole point of the This Time Next Year challenge and why it's 365 days long, because I realized that instead of trying to make quick, frantic, desperate change, trying to alter the present circumstances of my life kind of immediately, I needed it to be a longer process so that it could be more sustainable, so that I could commit to it, so that I could actually make lasting, sustainable changes. And I did. I built new habits, I built new routines, I tried new things, and my whole life changed. By the end of the challenge, I knew so much more about myself. Like, I'd learned about all these new skills I had. I'd started a dance class, I'd made all of these new friends, I'd been traveling around, I'd found this huge sense of independence. Like, I started taking myself out for lunch and for dinner just by myself, which is something I never would have done before. I started taking much better care of my mental health and my physical health. I started pushing myself to achieve things that in the past I would have not had the self-confidence to do. I applied for a job in Vietnam and I got it, and I freaking moved here. I wrote a freaking book. Okay, if that's not an indication of how well things were going by the end of the challenge, then I don't know what is. And now I want to share what you can do if you want to start your own This Time Next Year challenge. This is going to be kind of like a very basic overview to help you get started. Of course, over the course of that year, there were a lot of other things that I did and a lot of other things that I learned that helped me to make the amount of change that I did. But this is what you need to get started. So like I said, in its most basic sense, the This Time Next Year challenge is all about figuring out what you want your life to look like by this time next year, and then taking one step a day to bring you closer to bringing that life into your reality. So here's how you're going to do that. Start by making a spider diagram, and in the middle, I want you to write the words, "This time next year, I am." And then all the way around the spider diagram, I want you to finish that sentence with statements about what you want your life to be like by this time next year. But there is an important caveat here. When you are deciding what you want your life to look like by this time next year, I want you to remember that the foundation for your happiness and sense of fulfillment has to come from you, not from chasing after other people or external things or flashy possessions. Because when you hang your happiness on external things outside of yourself, you give away all of your power. That is exactly what I had done in the past, right? All of my happiness was tied up in my friends and my fiance and my apartment and my job. And then as soon as I lost all of those things, there was no happiness left, because none of it came from me and my sense of self-worth and my accomplishments and my passions. My happiness came from everything else except me. And I realized that I never wanted to live that way again. What kind of happiness can you find from yourself, your passions, developing your interests, feeling proud and good about yourself? For example, on my new spider diagram that I just made, because I am doing another This Time Next Year challenge, I wrote things like, I am an avid reader, I am more confident around new people. Once you've got your spider diagram laid out, you're going to move on to the next exercise. And you are going to finish the sentence, I am the kind of person who. I want you to go back to your spider diagram, and for every point you have on there, I want you to think of 2 to 3 examples of what kind of person would be living that kind of life. What kinds of habits would you need to have? What kinds of routines? What kinds of things would you need to do in order to get those results? So for each of those points on your spider diagram, like I said, write 2 to 3 examples of ways that you'll need to change your routine, or new habits you'll need to form, or things that you'll need to start doing. Next, don't panic. Because honestly, that list of I am the kind of person who probably looks nothing like the kind of person you actually are right now. And that's okay, because it's the This Time Next Year challenge. You have time. From there, you're gonna wanna do one thing every day that brings you closer to that life and being that person. I can't stress this enough. It really does just take one thing a day. Because over the course of a year, that's 365 things. And I think that's the most important lesson I learned throughout this challenge. Wait, is it? I don't know. I learned so many important lessons throughout this challenge. Okay, it's definitely one of the most important lessons that I've learned. There is no need to rush. You will get better, more sustainable, longer lasting results if you take your time and stop racing and throwing yourself towards the finish line. Finally, I just want to share a few of my top tips for changing your life so that you can have the most success possible based on everything that I've already done and learned. Number 1, set goals that actually resonate with you. Don't worry about becoming that girl or trying to fit in with some specific aesthetic. Set goals that align with your passions and the things that are important to you, and forget about what everyone else is doing. Number 2, I already kind of went on a bit of a rant about this one already, but don't try and change too much too quickly. All you're going to do is get overwhelmed, it's going to be unsustainable, and you're going to give up. Number 3, make it enjoyable. Yes, there are going to be times when you're changing your life that you have to like drag your butt out of bed to do a workout, or you have to go to an uncomfortable job interview, or you have to push yourself out of your comfort zone in a way that kind of feels icky. But there should also be plenty of times where you're just having fun. Pursue joy. Chase after the things that make you feel good, because happiness isn't waiting for us at the finish line of the challenge. It should be interwoven into every single day that we are working towards this new life. And finally, find yourself a support system. I was seeing my life coach while I was doing my This Time Next Year challenge, and I mean, I can't even express to you how helpful that was. Find someone who can advise you, find someone who can guide you, find someone who has been there, who knows what they're talking about. Like, yes, it's nice to be able to go to a family member or a friend and share your thoughts and feelings with them. That's great. But I do recommend having someone who has some kind of insight into personal development or psychology, or the kinds of changes that you're trying to make. Like, having someone who has the appropriate knowledge about that is so huge. I am personally going to be launching a This Time Next Year Jumpstart program very soon. It's going to be a 3-month long in-depth step-by-step guide to changing your life, and everything that I learned during my This Time Next Year challenge that then you can apply to yours to get the best results possible. You also get access to live calls with me and to a community group, so that kind of has its own built-in support system. Like I said, it's not quite ready yet, but if you would like to register your interest ahead of time, then you will get a discount when it's launched. But if you're not into that, that's totally fine. Like I said, life coaching or any other kind of coaching is definitely a good option too. Oh my gosh, that was so much information. I've been talking for a really long time, right? Or does it just feel that way? I don't know, but I hope you guys found this video really helpful. If you did, then please go ahead and give it a thumbs up to let me know. I actually have some freebies for you guys. I have some printable worksheets that you can use to get started on your This Time Next Year challenge. I will leave them in the description box down below. But until next time, thank you guys so much for watching. Remember that I love you so much. You are enough just as you are, and I will see you next time. Bye guys.